Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we are going to be ranking Season 17 from worst to best. Now, I think a lot of the stories this season suffer from production issues. It's very easy to see that they had a couple of tentpole stories that they allocated a lot of the budget to, which in the case of Shada is really tragic since it wasn't finished, and that really hurt a lot of the stories this season. And I found that pretty much all of the stories this season that are considered bad or just underrated and that they're actually pretty good from a story narrative, they just have a lot of production issues that hold them back from being as good as they could be. And at the bottom of the list, starting with that, I have Creature from the Pit. I like Creature from the Pit. I do think it's underrated. The creature itself isn't realized very well. Especially in some shots where, yeah, it's very unfortunate, including that one infamous scene in episode 3 with Tom. That's very unfortunate. But I think if people only think of it for that, they're really selling themselves and the story short, because it finishes really strongly. I really enjoyed episode 4. About the first 7 minutes of episode 4 are really good, like masterpiece Doctor Who. Tom Baker gets to deliver a really good speech from the Doctor, one of the Doctor's most underrated speeches, honestly, where Tom Baker's putting in a fantastic performance when he's basically calling out the Queen for everything she's done. It's really good. And then it took a couple unexpected turns with her being killed off so early in that episode, and then it left a lot of questions as was the creature itself good, was it bad, was it what it said it was. I found it a really engaging story. I think episodes 1 and 2 were good. Episode 3 was kind of weak, it kind of fell off, and then episode 4 really picked back up and it finished pretty strongly, actually. Underrated episode. Next on the list, I guess would be number 5 for me, is Nightmare of Eden, which I also think is a good story. I think it has some really good set designs, actually. I think I would probably like the set designs more than most. I actually thought they worked pretty well. The updated effects on the Season 17 collection box set really helped give it some quality and life improvements that I think it really needs. That's the first way I watched it, and found it more enjoyable. Though the teal-colored lasers I didn't really care for, just because I really don't care for the color teal. It's very boring. The story's really good, though. I think it has a nice little message about drugs and the danger of drugs, but it gets it across without using a lecturing tone. It shows you why drugs are bad and how addictive they can be and how they can make you unaware and uncaring about things that are important, and the withdrawal and side effects of using them and what they can do to you as a person. It does all this by showing you this instead of giving you a big lecture at the end of the episode, like, say, Orphan 55 or something. And I really enjoyed that. I thought the mandrels were realized decently. My main issues with it were a lot of the choreographed fight scenes were rough, especially between the mandrels and people. Anytime the mandrels are killing somebody, it looks terrible. And some of the blocking in it was questionable, and I don't really like Lala's outfit in it. It just looks like she's about to go to bed. But other than that, oh, and the guy playing the scientist has the worst accent. It's a terrible accent. But I found the story itself enjoyable. Next on the list is the Horns of Nymon. It really is kind of a rough trio there, because all 3 of those stories are in a row. Creature from the Pit, and then Nightmare of Eden, and then Horns of Nymon, and that's how the season originally ended. Ooh. Horns of Nymon is objectively bad. It's objectively probably the worst of all of the season. But if you go into Horns of Nymon thinking of it as pure camp, as almost a farce, as just panto, and enjoy it for being the silly, campy thing that it is, and you just fully embrace that going into it, it's a lot of fun. Kind of like in modern series Doctor Who stories, when you go into them knowing just what they are, knowing that they're just kind of filler and that they're there for something different, kind of like the Unicorn and the Wasp or the Crimson Horror, and you don't go into them expecting them to be heaven sent or Genesis of the Daleks. They can be very enjoyable. Horns of Nymon is like that too. If you just embrace the camp of it, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy watching Saul Deed ham it up and try to out Tom Baker. I think Tom Baker has some great lines in this. Oh, don't you worry your little head over it. You just focus on holding that gun steady. I like that. Yes, the sets are bad. Yes, the Nymons look terrible and are obviously people in suits. Oh, I'm bumping stuff. But it's so panto that if you just embrace that, it can be a fun watch. It does have a strong rewatchability for me. Like, I could see myself rewatching that once a year, once every other year, and just enjoying it. How many Nymons have you seen today? 3! I have seen 3! I love it. It's just something to watch and laugh at, and I enjoy that. Number 3 on the list for me, and I'm surprised by this, but I'm going with Shada. Now, objectively, Shada should be 2 on the list, but I've seen Shada so many times since the 2017 version came out, which I got it in 2018. So in the past 3.5 to 4 years I've had it, I've seen it a lot. So much so I haven't even managed to get through the episodic version of it on the Blu-ray yet. I watched part 1 and got most of the way through part 2, and I just ran out of gas because I've seen it so many times. It's really good. I love the story. Let me be clear with that. I love the story. I love Douglas Adams' wit and his humor. I love the small talk between the Time Lords. I love the animation. I think it's fantastic. I think it's a great 6-parter, and I think it would have been a phenomenal way to close out the season, and I think it is now a phenomenal way to close out the season. It's a very nice, epic story. My only issue is I've seen it so many times, I'm just burned out on it. I'll probably finish the episodic version of it sometime soon, and then I'm not going to watch it again for a while. And that's the only reason why it's 3 on the list. Number 2 on the list for me is Destiny of the Daleks, the Dalek story I call the most mediocre Dalek story ever made, and I stand by that. But I won the updated effects from the DVD release, which are also on the Blu-ray box set, do give it some nice quality of life improvements. Like, I love the fact that the Movellan's weapons actually shoot beams now. That really helps a lot. I really haven't watched the new version of it with the surround sound with the modulated Davros voice, but I'm sure that's going to be a great improvement. This one, a lot like a lot of the other stories I've mentioned in this season, while it has objective issues and the limited budget really shows here, especially when they're down in the depths of Skaro. It looks like it had a $10 budget. I still find it heavily rewatchable because I like this season with its wit and its humor, because that's kind of things I associate with the Fourth Doctor, is a lot of the humor found in this season is what I associate with the Fourth Doctor in general. I love Tom Baker in this episode. I love when he's reading while pinned under the thing. That's the Fourth Doctor to me, so I find that amusing. I like the Movellan's design, even if it's a little silly. I don't like how easy it is to beat them. You just take that little thing off their hip and they fall right down. That's kind of silly. Davros, the mask, is definitely a problem, but David's doing as good as he can with what he has. And then I hate when the people forget that the Daleks are creatures, not machines, but that's another story. And I find Tom and Lala fun to watch in it. So I like the story, even if I do think it's mediocre. And then, of course, number 1 on the list is City of Death. I love City of Death. I think it's one of the best Doctor Who stories ever made. One of my favorite Doctor Who stories ever made. I think Tom Baker is at his pinnacle right here, especially for that witty, snarky Doctor is a pinnacle at this story. I think Julian Glover is great as the Count. The actress playing the Countess, she is great. I love the cameo from John Cleese. I love even Romana in this one. I really like Romana's outfit in this one. I love the location work. It really does give this story a very cinematic look and feel and quality to it. Really, the only thing hurting it is that the original film elements didn't survive. I really wish the original film elements for the location shoot had survived, because that would have looked glorious on the Blu-ray box set. But still, the story is absolutely fantastic. I love the humor. My favorite scene in all of Doctor Who is from this story, so it had to be number 1. It's just a phenomenal, phenomenal story. So as a whole, I really like Season 17. I think it's very underrated, much like season 18, which is interesting because they're vastly different. I don't know if there's 2 consecutive seasons of Doctor Who that are just so massively different. But they are just very, very different seasons. But I think they're both underrated and overshadowed by a lot of Tom's earlier work. But they're both phenomenal seasons with some great stories in it. There aren't any stories in season 17 that I think are just a terrible watch. But there's not a lot of Tom Baker stories I feel that way about. Honestly, the only 2 that jump right to mind, of course, Power of Kroll. You guys know I don't like that one. And then I think The Leisure Hive is really bad, too. Watchable. Perfectly watchable. But, well, maybe not perfectly, but it's watchable. But still really bad. Those are my least 2 Toms. And those are really the only ones that just spring to mind where I'm just like, oh, God, that one. Most of the others, I think, are pretty good. And I enjoy all of them in Season 17 to one degree or another. So I'd like to know what you think of Season 17 and what you think of my ranking and my reasoning and how you would rank them. So comment down below and let me know what you think. Other things to do while I have you here. Lots of stuff in the description. I have a link to my Patreon down there if you would like to support me on Patreon. I have a P.O. box down there as well. If there's anything you would like to send me, Doctor Who related, sci-fi related, or otherwise. A link to my Amazon wish list is down there as well. If there's anything on that you would like to send me to look at. I want to give a special shout out to 2 of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane and the 5th Doctor. I do appreciate their continued support and the support of all of my patrons. And, hey, if you like what you've seen, go ahead and click that subscribe button as well. I'm trying to grow the channel to 1,000 subscribers. That is my goal at the moment. And we're slowly working our way up to that. I think I'm at about 680 now. Always nice watching the channel grow. But most importantly, thank you for watching.